Famously known as Lady Day, Billie Holiday was a carefree woman who lived her life to the fullest. She was always dressed impeccably, often sporting plush new mink coats, loved to curse, and had many lovers of both sexes. By many accounts, she had a beautiful and intoxicating personality, which was heavily intertwined with her singing voice. Her music was an outpouring of expression, making listeners feel the truth behind every word she sang. She portrayed a range of human emotions that struck listeners on a deeply personal level. Despite having a limited vocal range, Billie had an iconic sound. Many aspects of her singing style were unique and daring, setting her apart from typical singers and making her unforgettable. To fully understand and appreciate Billie Holiday, one must first know her entire story, including the traumas she endured, such as being molested at the young age of 11, and the challenges she faced as a successful Black woman in a racist and segregated society. But her story is also one of triumph and impactful art, exemplified by her haunting rendition of Strange Fruit, a song about the horrors faced by Black Americans, which she persisted on singing everywhere she went, despite the risks that followed. By the end of this video, I assure you that Billie Holiday will become, if she is not already, a favorite of yours for years to come. Since it is challenging to cover Billie's music on YouTube without facing copyright issues, I have created a playlist featuring her music throughout her career, which you can find in the description box below. Let's get started. The best of humanity's recorded history is a creative balance between horrors endured and victories achieved, and so it was during the Harlem Renaissance. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, the thriving neighborhood of Harlem served as the backdrop for a significant period in Black art. This important neighborhood took shape as millions of Black families moved to northern cities to escape scarce economic opportunities and increasingly cruel segregation laws, a movement known as the Great Migration. Many took advantage of new job opportunities, such as the abundance of open positions in the industrial sector sparked by World War I. According to History.com, the northern Manhattan neighborhood of Harlem was meant to be an upper-class white neighborhood in the 1880s, but rapid overdevelopment led to empty buildings and desperate landlords seeking to fill them. The growing borough of Harlem sparked a movement. Black artists from all over the country had an opportunity to freely express themselves, and many quickly rose to fame. This roster of artists included trumpeter Louis Armstrong, singer Ella Fitzgerald, writer Langston Hughes, and painter Aaron Douglas, just to name a few. Jazz, in particular, thrived in Harlem. There were jazz clubs on every corner, with names such as the Savoy Ballroom, Yeah Man, the Cotton Club, Small's Paradise, and the Hot Cha. At the Hot Cha, it's said nothing really happened until after 2 a.m. Late in the night, you would catch a young, up-and-coming singer named Billie Holiday, performing to the jam-packed club. Around the age of 13, Billie followed her mother Sadie into New York City in 1928. At this time, she was only known by her real name, Eleanor Fagan. When Billie first arrived in Harlem, she started working as a prostitute alongside her mother. In May 1929, the brothel they were working at was raided. Both Billie and her mother were arrested. As a result, Billie, at the age of 14, spent 2 days in prison and 100 days in a penitentiary workhouse on Welfare Island, known now as Roosevelt Island. Upon her release, she was determined to never work as a prostitute again. This is when she began earning her singing chops. working at various jazz clubs around Harlem. Billie soon became a popular attraction. It was also during this time that she chose a new name for herself. She selected Billie from her favorite screen actress Billie Dove, and Holiday from her estranged father's last name. Billie Holiday was making ripples in Harlem. Throughout the early 1930s, Miss Holiday was a popular regular at clubs just like the Hot Cha. As mentioned in Ken Burns' documentary Jazz, in these clubs, often there was only a pianist to accompany her, and she was expected to work the whole room without a microphone, stopping at each table to sing a chorus or two, shifting her delivery slightly with each step to encourage bigger tips. It was the best possible training for her. In 1933, she was spotted by music producer John Hammond, who set up her first recording session with rising star Benny Goodman. She was only 18. This would soon catapult her to international fame. Billie Holiday's childhood was marked by significant hardships. Born Eleanora Fagan on April 7, 1915, to teenage parents Clarence Holiday and Sadie Julia Fagan, she was collected from the hospital as a baby and sent to live with a relative in Baltimore. Throughout her adolescence, she was left with distant relatives or friends of her mother to help raise her. Often she faced abuse and neglect in these environments. As a child, her mother and father were not constant figures in her life. Her mother made occasional visits, but was mostly away, working various jobs to make ends meet. Her father, a traveling guitarist, abandoned her during childhood, only reconnecting with her once she gained recognition in the jazz world. For a period of time, Billie was sent to live at a Catholic reform school named the House of the Good Shepherd. She ended up living there for a year due to skipping school and lack of proper care and guardianship. According to Legacy.com, this was a school known for meting out harsh punishments for even minor transgressions. Punishments for young Billie included locking her in a room with a deceased individual for a night and enduring daily ridicule from the nuns. Billie spent the most of her childhood on the streets of Baltimore, where her personality took shape. Known for being quiet at times, she would light up at a challenge. She developed a fearless, tough, and uninhibited persona. There were also early signs of her passion for singing, as her cousin recalled her singing around the house at a young age. For a period of time, Billie worked as an errand girl in a brothel, where she got her first exposure to the enticing world of jazz. She listened to Louis Armstrong's trumpet, Bessie Smith's powerful voice echoing through the room on the parlor's Victrola. Unfortunately, hardship was a common theme in Billie's childhood. At the age of only 11, she was assaulted by a man named Wilbert Rich, and shockingly, she was accused of provoking the incident. Despite her mother's pleas, the officers locked Billie in jail for 2 days and then sent her back to the Catholic Reform School for another year. In her autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, Billie wrote that after the attack, the cops at the precinct treated her like she killed somebody. In 1928, after enduring the hardships of a traumatic childhood in Baltimore, Billie longed to be with her mother in New York City. She was also enticed by what the big city could offer her. Gathering up her belongings, she bought a one-way ticket to Harlem. Understanding Billie's childhood experiences is crucial to grasping how they influenced her adult life. It's hard to imagine the impacts of just one of the many traumatic episodes she endured as a young girl. The pain she suffered as a child can be heard in the emotional outpouring of her music. Her defiance and strength over these early life obstacles are also clearly present. Billie Holiday's voice was more than just an instrument. It was a channel for her soul. Her singing style was daring and unconventional, drawing listeners into a deeply emotional experience. Unlike traditional vocalists, Billie's phrasing mimicked the rhythms of jazz instrumentation, allowing her to bend notes and manipulate timing in ways that felt spontaneous and intimate. Her unique delivery made each performance intensely personal, as if she was confiding in the audience. Whether joyful or melodic, her voice was a raw expression of her inner world, and it's this vulnerability that captivated people. From the soft, almost conversational tones to the haunting crescendos, Billie created a new language of jazz, one that left a lasting mark on music and culture. Beth Roars, a vocal coach and musical director here on YouTube, provides an excellent vocal analysis of Billie Holiday. I highly recommend for anyone interested in more of a deep dive into Billie Holiday's voice to go and check it out. In the meantime, here are some insights I pulled from her analysis. Throughout her career, Billie was never entirely on time with the melody. She loved to improvise, never singing a song the same way twice, staying true to how she felt in the moment. She possessed a depth to her voice that defied her age, making it hard to believe that such a young woman was singing in her early recordings. Billie also utilized her nasal-sounding voice to emphasize the meaning of the lyrics she was singing. Her voice often also imitated sounds of an instrument. Billie was highly influenced as a young girl by listening to records of Louis Armstrong and Bessie Smith. This early exposure to music left a lasting impression on her. The influence of both Armstrong and Smith is integral to her style and can easily be spotted in her recordings. From Louis Armstrong, she learned to lean into the N sound and singing on the consonants. The iconic growl in Louis's voice can also be heard in many of Billie's songs. Bessie Smith, the most popular blues singer of the 1920s and 30s, known for her big voice and emotional vocal outpouring, taught Billie the importance of emotion in singing. Although Billie didn't have as strong of a voice as Bessie, she made an impact by capitalizing on the emotional qualities of her unique singing voice. Beth Roars makes an excellent point in her analysis. Billie allowed the ugly and the pain to show, and in fact made a point of it, moving the aim of singing from perfection to humanity. She showed us that our flaws can be our beauty and that we might need some uncomfortable truths to provoke change. Billie's style created space for a new type of music and inspired countless artists even after her death in 1959. Many during her lifetime admitted to copying her. Billie gave others permission to fully rely on their emotions to express the meaning of a song. Because of her, artists like Janis Joplin, Nina Simone, and Etta James were inspired to be vulnerable and raw through their music. Billie's raw emotional singing was her weapon. Her performances and interpretations of songs were immensely moving and impactful. A prime example of this is her performance and translation of Strange Fruit. Strange Fruit was originally a poem written by Abel Meeropol, a Jewish schoolteacher who used the pen name Lewis Allen. Meeropol wrote the poem in response to the lynching of African Americans in the southern United States. He once stated, "I wrote Strange Fruit because I hate lynching, because I hate injustice, and I hate the people who perpetuate it." Inspired by Lawrence Beitler's distressing photograph of the 1930 lynching of Thomas Shipp and Abraham Smith in Indiana, Meeropol crafted this haunting piece. Lynching was a practice used to maintain white supremacy in the economic, social, and political spheres during the 19th and 20th centuries. It became prevalent after the Civil War, as African Americans began to build their own communities and gain financial independence. Tragically, it wasn't until March 7th, 2022, that lynching was officially made illegal in the United States. Billie Holiday encountered Murapol while performing at the newly opened Cafe Society in New York City, the first racially integrated nightclub in the city. Murapol challenged her to turn Strange Fruit into a song. Billie accepted and delivered a shockingly emotional interpretation of the poem. In 1939, Billie recorded Strange Fruit, and it became one of the most influential songs in American history. The song continues to captivate listeners to this very day. There is footage of Billie performing Strange Fruit at the Chelsea Palace Studios in London in February 1959, just months before her death. This performance can easily be found on YouTube. I would love to include it in this video, but unfortunately it is copyrighted, so please look it up for yourself to experience. Watching this clip, one can begin to understand why Billie's rendition is so compelling. Her frailness is visible, yet she immerses herself deeply in the powerful lyrics, leaving the listener with a haunting emotional experience. Billie often mentioned that Strange Fruit reminded her of how her father had been killed when he was refused medical treatment due to Jim Crow laws in the South. This personal pain would bring her to tears when singing the song. There were significant consequences to Billie Holiday performing Strange Fruit. She made a point to sing it at all of her performances, understanding the importance of its story. She even included a clause in her contracts to allow her to sing it. According to David Pilgrim, curator of the Jim Crow Museum, Strange Fruit quickly became an anthem of the anti-lynching movement and was the first significant song of the then-fledgling civil rights movement. The song forced listeners to confront the brutality of lynching. When Billie performed this song, audience reactions varied from crying to looks of disgust, and of course, there were always racist hecklers. Radio stations across the United States banned the song, and club owners tried to discourage her from performing it. By persistently singing Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday took a stance. Her powerful interpretation was so effective that it inspired others to face the cruelty and injustices in America. Because of this, Billie Holiday became a target, and she paid a hefty price for her bravery. Billie Holiday started using hard drugs such as heroin in the early 1940s, introduced by her first husband, Jimmy Monroe. Throughout the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, Billie was rising to fame, making significant ripples in the music world. Being a successful Black woman in America during this time was like having a huge target on your back. Despite being one of the most significant and impactful artists America has seen, Billie endured harsh treatment throughout her life. Billie faced struggles every day, such as being forced to blacken her face for a white audience because she was considered too light-skinned to sing with a black band. She had to enter venues through the back door while her white bandmates used the front door and can do as they pleased. On tour, she was often barred from restaurants and restrooms and had to use service elevators and hotels to avoid disturbing white guests. She also endured relentless racial slurs and heckling. Jazz was sweeping the nation, becoming the genre of choice for people around the world. Harlem was the epicenter of this musical movement. However, white leaders could not fathom the success of Black musicians. To keep Black music and musicians in check, the New York City Police Department created the cabaret card in the 1940s. This card was a form of identification required for all musicians and entertainers to work in nightclubs or similar establishments where alcohol was served, primary venues for jazz musicians. The cabaret card was ultimately a way to suppress Black jazz musicians. In 1947, Billie Holiday had her cabaret card revoked following a drug arrest. Despite serving a year in jail, police refused to reinstate her card, preventing her from performing in nightclubs for over a decade. She had to rely on exhausting tours and theater performances in New York City. Many famous black jazz musicians of the time were similarly affected, significantly impacting their careers and lives. Billie was a frequent user of marijuana, opium, cocaine, and especially heroin, as were many musicians during this time. However, unlike her white counterparts, Billie's drug habits were made headline news, often dramatized for a more enticing story. Her fast life, increasing fame, and insistence on singing the controversial song Strange Fruit made her a target for Harry Anslinger, one of the most vile individuals in American history. Harry Anslinger, the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, was a man who built his career on fighting the war on drugs. He believed that drugs caused non-whites to forget their place and could lead to attacks on white people. His racist views informed his work, and he despised jazz, deeming it dangerous. He targeted Billie Holiday while turning a blind eye to white artists like known heroin addict Judy Garland. Anslinger's war on drugs was in reality a war on culture, an attempt to suppress the radical freedom of the jazz age for people of color. He couldn't have reigned as long as he did without complicit politicians sharing his bigoted vision for America. Because of Anslinger, Billie's life was made a living hell. She was constantly followed by agents, including during her performances. Throughout the 1940s and 50s, she was arrested multiple times for drug possession, serving a year in prison on one occasion. Billie was often framed, sometimes even by the ones closest to her. Her own husband once helped Anslinger's agents plant drugs on her. Unfortunately, many men in her life exploited her fame and fortune, aiding in her arrests. Anslinger's relentless pursuit continued until Billie's death. By the end of May 1959, Billie's health was in serious decline. She was admitted to the hospital after collapsing from cardiac arrest and liver damage. Although she initially responded well to treatment, gaining weight and planning to return home, things took a dramatic turn when police showed up on June 12th to arrest her. Allegedly, they found a small tinfoil wrapper containing heroin, which many argue was possibly planted on her. Billie was charged with narcotics possession, and police guards were stationed outside her hospital room. They even went so far as to cuff her to her bed. Despite her heart and liver stabilizing, Billie developed a new kidney infection, and her heart continued to weaken. On July 15th, a priest administered her last rites, and Billie hung on until July 17th, when she succumbed in the middle of the night. The cause of death was announced as congestion of the lungs, accompanied by failure of the heart. It is hard not to imagine that the stress of the situation provoked her decline. Anslinger was reportedly thrilled by the news, writing, "For her, there will be no more good morning heartache," quoting one of her famous hits. Billie Holiday's story is often presented in a misleading way, continually labeled as a sad, hopeless figure who led a horrific life. While it's true that she endured a lot, it's misleading to define her solely in such narrow terms. This tends to happen with famous figures who had dramatic episodes in their lives, much like Marilyn Monroe in the recent film adaptation Blonde. Several factors contributed to this deceptive view of Billie Holiday. Media during her lifetime loved to dramatize her life, portraying her as a sad, troubled drug addict. This trope has unfortunately been retold for decades. Another contributing factor was Billie Holiday's autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, published in 1956. The idea of writing an autobiography came from Billie's husband, Louis McKay, who wanted to cash in on the confessional book trend. She got in touch with her friend Maylie, whose husband, William Dufty, was an established writer. With his help, the book took shape. However, Billie spent a short time with Dufty before starting a tour, so the book is loosely based on her life. Many statements in the book are incorrect. For instance, the first line, "Mom and Pop were just a couple of kids when they got married," is false. Her parents were never married. The autobiography also capitalized on the same storyline newspapers loved, painting Billie as a sad victim of drug abuse. Before the book's publication, Billie and her husband were arrested for possession of heroin, cocaine, and a firearm, although it's argued the police may have planted this evidence. The publishers wanted to capitalize on the event, making Dufty add the incident to boost sales. He also added an extra chapter on narcotics, making the book an overnight success and a bestseller. Another false narrative was that Billie was unreliable due to her drinking and drug habits. However, evidence suggests otherwise. Research done by Linda Kuehl found that many club owners and bandmates had accounts of her rarely missing a show and being very easy to work with. One club manager claimed she persistently fulfilled her contractual agreements. It seems that when Billie didn't show up for a gig, there was often a strong reason, such as the horrific treatment she faced while performing with Artie Shaw's all-white band in 1938. She was fatigued from being refused service in the South and had violent confrontations with racist audience members. The last straw was being banned to her room at the Lincoln Hotel, named after a president who proclaimed equality for all Americans. She was never allowed to visit the bar or dining room, had to enter and leave through the kitchen, and had to remain alone in her room until called to perform. The stress from this tour led her to quit, as was often the case when she stormed off due to racial circumstances. The 1972 film A Lady Sings the Blues, adopted from Billie Holiday's autobiography, further solidified false tropes about her life. Diana Ross starred as Billie Holiday, but did not transform herself into the famous jazz musician, especially with her vocals, which are central to Billie's persona. Ross's performance sounded more like herself rather than mimicking Billie's iconic sound. The film also falsely portrayed Louis McKay as a supportive, loyal companion throughout her career, when in reality, he exploited Billie for money and attention, and was reportedly physically and emotionally abusive. The movie pretends he was with her from the start, but they only knew each other during the last few years of her life. Furthermore, the film depicted Billie as a sad victim of addiction, as if that were the only theme in her life. The most recent movie, The United States vs. Billie Holiday, also added false storylines, such as portraying a romantic relationship between Billie and one of Anslinger's agents. Billie Holiday's real life was more captivating than any fictional stories written about her. She was a complex woman, much like her contemporaries or any other human being for that matter. Her story cannot be defined by one aspect of her life. Yes, there were moments of distress, horror, and abuse, but there were also moments of heroism, triumph, fun, beauty, and joy. I adore Billie Holiday. There is and always will be a special place in my heart for her. She was an unbelievably strong woman who experienced pain many of us can't fathom. Yet through her music, she offers a source of strength and joy. If you need a friend who understands your pain, but also gives you the strength to push through even the hardest times, or even just a boost of happiness in your day, Billie Holiday is your gal. Luckily, Billie has left us with an extensive body of work which we can cherish for generations to come. I encourage you to check out the playlist I have made of Billie's most notable work, which is included in the description box below. I have also included some extra resources on Billie if you want to learn more about this remarkable woman. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Billie Holiday song is. Be sure to subscribe for more, and as always, thank you for joining me on another nostalgic adventure.